Critical psychology, how has it changed? How can it influence our minds?
How do you think psychology has changed during your lifetime?
I think even during my lifetime, something I've noticed is that there has been a huge shift in towards the acceptance of mental health issues. I feel like when I was a kid, people didn't really talk about going to therapy or taking like self-care, health kind of days and things like that. And nowadays you see that normalized. And I think maybe the introduction of social media really allowed for that, for people to share and be comfortable. Nowadays you hear people talking about going to therapy, like sharing their feelings, sharing their traumas, and I think that's really a step in the right direction.
How do you think psychology has changed during your life?
Psychology's definitely changed a lot. We have where we accept as a society now that and identify that mental health is as important as physical health. We have mental health awareness days, mental health awareness months, and so it's not viewed as negatively. It's widely recognized.
What do you think is a limitation of healthcare?
I think honestly a big limitation of healthcare is just money, especially in America. Just people not having access to privatized healthcare and not being able to get those checkups that they need because of the costs.
What do you think is one limitation in healthcare?
Access, making sure people have access to healthcare, getting access to your doctors, getting time with them. Sometimes when you call, you are now 6 to 12 months out. So if we're going to make sure people are healthy, both mentally and physically, they need to be able to see a doctor.
So I chose to interview someone from our current generation and then someone from an older generation and see how their viewpoints would differ about how they think critical psychology has changed and healthcare. And it was interesting because both these people had very similar viewpoints. So I think it shows that this has been a problem that's been around for so long. And it just kind of emphasizes everything we've talked about in class, that these problems are at a systemic level and it takes a while to make something change. As both people said in their interviews, we are doing a better job with mental health awareness. I definitely think that's very prevalent, and even in our class discussions, we talked about that this term. But there's a lot of work to be done on, I think, disability, which we talked about in class. Just making that more equalized and giving them more equal opportunities. And then also with the healthcare, they both mentioned money and access. And so the second person interviewed was my mom. And right now we're actually kind of going through this tough thing with healthcare because my grandma is being moved into assisted living. And we're like, oh, what does her Medicare pay for? It's not much. And we might have to pay like 20 grand out of pocket or something. So it's crazy how much something is, and I think people don't realize unless they're actually experiencing it. So this class has really taught me to open my mind up and think about these issues, because we get so easily driven into the tunnel vision mindset where you're just going about your day not paying attention to what is around you and what's actually happening, what's actually problems until they happen to you. So I just thought that was an interesting point, but I definitely learned a lot this term, and I will see you next term in Psych of Hate. Here are just my two cats that I adopted this year, Theo and Simba. Had to put them in at the end.